We're going now to beautiful British Columbia to my good friend Garnet Schulhauser. He's a famous medium. He's written some wonderful books, including The Dance of Heavenly Bliss. I wrote the foreword to that book earlier this year. But Garnet, I want to welcome you to the program.
Well, hi, Ted. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm sorry we ran a few minutes late. I had a gentleman who was from the Inner Earth, Zora, and he was giving us some what he had to say, Garnet, was so interesting that I decided to skip my announcements for this second hour, and then we ran a few minutes late. But thank you so much for coming on today, Garnet. I always enjoy talking to you.
I enjoy being on your show, Ted. You're a wonderful host.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, for my listeners who don't know Garnet, you've had an interesting career, weren't you? Don't you? You were a corporate lawyer in Calgary, Alberta, for many years, and then you were on your lunch break some years ago, and what looked to be like a homeless man with sparkling blue eyes catches your eye, and then your life started to change after that.
That's exactly right. I met this homeless man. He basically jumped out in front of me, stopped me in my tracks, and as you said, he had these amazing sparkling blue eyes. And the long and the short of it, of the story, is that I ended up engaging this guy in a dialogue over several months. He turned out to be one of my spirit guides in disguise, and his name was Albert.
Oh, we
had a series of dialogue, question and answer sessions, which resulted in my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. Then he came back into my life again. This time he was in astral form, just showed up in my bedroom one night. He looked like sort of like a ghost, like a ethereal figure, which I saw standing sort of in the doorway of my bedroom. I didn't know what it was. As he moved closer, Ted, I could see it was Albert, but he was in astral form. And this time, instead of us just having a dialogue, he took me on a series of astral trips, out-of-body trips. We went to the spirit side. We went to other places in the universe, other places on our beautiful planet. And he told me that he wanted me to write about what I saw and heard in my second book, which I did, which was Dancing Forever with Spirit. Then he came back again after I'd finished that manuscript, came back again into my life, again in astral form, showed up unannounced in my bedroom, and said, come on, new set of trips. So we had another set of exciting adventures, which he wanted me to write about in my third book, which I did, and that's Dance of Heavenly Bliss, which has just been released in March.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, I have to ask you this, and this is a question only on Out of This World Radio I can ask this question to you, Garnet. But you met many interesting spirits in your books, and one of the passages I do remember is where you sat down, and this is an incredible story, and I'd love for you to talk about it if you can. You saw both Jesus and Adolf Hitler on the same bench, and you talked to both of them. Would you care to share what happened during that conversation?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience, because this was one of my trips to the spirit side with Albert.
Right.
And he told me that he just sort of announced out of the blue that he was going to take me to meet a couple of very interesting souls who had, famous lives on Earth. Actually, probably one of them was infamous, but
Right.
And he said one of these souls was a paragon of virtue, and the other one was an evil monster.
Right.
And I couldn't, for the life of me, try to guess what he was talking about.
Right.
Anyway, so we walked towards this. We saw two characters sitting on a bench there in the middle.
Right.
As I got closer, I did a double take, because one of them looked like Jesus Christ in a white robe,
Right.
and the other one was Adolf Hitler in his military uniform.
Wow.
And the two of them were sitting there chatting very amicably, having a great conversation.
Oh, my
and I
goodness.
thought, what are these two polar opposites doing sitting side by side on the bench?
Oh, no.
Because they certainly seem to be polar opposites. So anyway,
Sure.
so I had a conversation with him, and it turns out I began with Adolf Hitler, who, as soon as I introduced myself, he morphed back into his normal shape and appearance on the spirit side, which was a young man named Matthew. And he told me that he showed up initially, so I would recognize him as Adolf Hitler, but he preferred his natural form. So he was a handsome young man named Matthew. He said he had lived his last life on Earth as Adolf Hitler. He knew in that life he had done many, many horrible, awful things to other people. The history books are full of the stories about what he did in his death camps.
Right.
He said he was very, very sorry about what he did. He wished that he hadn't done it. He wished he could do it over again. But he said that all the violence that happened through him wasn't a pre-planned event. It was because he just lost control of his negative emotions, his greed, his need for power, anger, hate, and so on. it just sort of it ran away on him, and he just found out that he couldn't seem to control it, and so that's how all the violence was caused. But he says that after his life review, when he crossed back over, he learned a lot from it. He's still very sorry for what he did, but he said the interesting thing was he said that he has met with many of the victims of his death camps, many of the people who he killed, and that there's been total reconciliation.
Wow.
Because he says on the spirit side, you don't bring any of that carryover of violence or negative emotions from the earth plane. When you're on the spirit side, there's nothing but unconditional love. So his victims totally forgave him for what he had done, and they gave him nothing but unconditional love. So that's what happens on the spirit side, and that's why Albert brought me to meet Adolf Hitler. He wanted to show me that even the most evil monster in our history, once back on the spirit side, is a loving soul, and that all the other souls love that soul unconditionally, no matter what they did on earth. So it was a real eye opener, and so then the whole time I'm talking to the guy who used to be Adolf Hitler, Jesus is sitting there nodding his head and smiling. And he basically said, yes, I agree with everything he said. He said he and Matthew, who used to be Adolf Hitler, get together frequently to discuss their lives on Earth. And, of course, they were very, very opposite characters. And so then Jesus said, well, yeah, he incarnated a couple thousand years ago at the request of the Council of Wise Ones to give humankind sort of a bit of a boost to encourage them to move up the spiritual ladder to become more spiritually enlightened.
Wow.
And because he was a master soul, still is actually, he was able to perform the miracles that are attributed to him in the Bible, like walking on water, turning water into wine, and raising people from the dead.
Wow.
And he did it because he had learned how to focus his thoughts into very powerful beams of energy. He tapped into the energy of the universe. That's how he did it.
Oh, that's amazing.
He had hoped to try to encourage people to live better lives, to be more loving and forgiving towards one another. That's why he incarnated. He assumed they would probably start a religion based upon his life and death, but he didn't know sort of how it would all play out.
Sure.
And he basically admitted to me, he said, the Christian church has done a lot of good things since his time, but they've been misguided in a number of ways. Some of the religious leaders have sort of gone off track to follow their own agenda, so he's not entirely pleased with how it developed, but he did say it was good that there has been a lot of good done, and so he was pleased with that. And so that was sort of an amazing conversation, having sort of the two polar opposites, the paragon of virtue, the epitome of evil, sitting side by side, and that just brings home to everyone the fact that is what life is like on the spirit side.
That is just incredible. I read that passage in your book, and I was just astounded. I'm just so pleased that you're here today on my show, and also, Garnet, that you're coming to my Galactic Wisdom Conference next month in Olympia, Washington. You'll be one of the speakers there, of course, and that'll be on June 10, 11, and 12. For more information, please see the website at galacticwisdomconference.com. There is something else very important in your books, too, that you've written about. There's many things you've written about, Garnet, but the other thing that struck me about your book is that you've actually spoken to Gaia, haven't you, the planet?
Yeah, that was a very interesting trip, Ted, because before this encounter, I always assumed, like a lot of people, that our planet was just an inert conglomeration of molecules, that forms rocks and mountains and rivers and oceans and so on. But I found out, actually much to my delight, that our planet has a consciousness. And this was on a trip that Albert took me beneath the North Pole into a cavern. There I got to speak with Gaia, the consciousness of Mother Earth.
Oh, my
goodness. And it was a very interesting conversation. She is a very wise and compassionate soul who wants to make sure that everything and everybody on her planet, within her sphere of influence, lives in the peace and harmony. And she is fiercely protective of her flora and fauna, including humans. But she expressed a lot of dismay, Ted, at what humans have been doing in the last couple of hundred years anyway. Since the Industrial Revolution, we've been very invasive in terms of sort of taking over the whole planet, shuffling aside the other animals, abusing the other animals, polluting Mother Earth, spilling chemicals into her rivers and oceans and noxious fumes into her air and so on. And she was very disturbed at this because she wants her planet. She wants to be a very happy place for everyone. not just humans, but for all the other animals, for the plants, and for the well-being of the whole ecosphere. That's what she wants, and humans are really interfering with that.
Wow.
She was unhappy. She doesn't feel vindictive towards us, but she really basically said, "Please take a message to your fellow humans. If they don't change their ways, it's going to end badly for them." And she doesn't want that to happen, but she wants humans to sort of really get the message to stop the pollution, stop abusing the other animals, and give and let everybody on the planet assume their rightful place in the universe and their right to live on this very beautiful planet that we have. So it was a very interesting conversation.
That's an incredible message, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've been told by other mediums and psychics that this year, 2016, and next year, Garnet, are pivotal years in the future of humanity, that the things that we do now will determine the life path of humanity and the planet for the coming years. And I think the basic human nature of people on this planet is to be loving and kind and benevolent, and it's not to be warring and fighting and hate all the time. And I think most people, if given a choice, they don't want war, they don't want suffering. They want everyone to be happy, not only their families but themselves, and as a planet as a whole. That's why I'm the eternal. I guess you could call me the eternal optimist. So, but
no, Ted. I mean, and that is the message that Gaia really wanted everyone to hear. Okay. And it's I'm doing it through my books. You're doing it through your radio show. Right. But that's really the message that we all have to get out. The ones who are getting the message, getting out to everyone else, so that we can encourage them to change their ways. And it can be done. I mean, we've come a long way in the last, say, 50 years in terms of pollution control.
Right.
We still have a long ways to go, though, and we really need to focus on it. And we really need to focus on treating other animals with dignity and respect, and allowing them to have their own place to live on this planet. They're not put there just for our own pleasure. They have their own rightful place, and we should respect that.
Well,
so that was Gaia's message, clearly, and it's one that I'm very happy to get out in whatever way I can. And I know that you are, of like mind, Ted, because I know that that's exactly how you think.
Oh, absolutely, Garnet. I think this. Everyone here has a soul mission, a purpose in life, and sometimes people will ask me. They'll say something like, "Well, I'm only one person. What can I do to make things better?" Well, Mahatma Gandhi was only one person. He did a lot of good things. President Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, before he was murdered back in November 22nd, 1963, he did a lot of good things for the country and the world. There are examples after examples of people just acting. They were just one person making this planet a better place. So I just had, during the last hour, I had a gentleman from the inner Earth named Zora. And he said that we were all gods and goddesses, and we can create with the Supreme Being to make this planet a much better place. All we have to do is make the right choices.
That's exactly right. That's the key. It's making the right choices. We have to choose love over fear, and that's really the basic choice we have. And if we fully embrace love and compassion, Ted, there is no room for negative emotions, and the negative emotions are what is causing a lot of the problems we have in our planet. The wars and the violence and the genocide and the murders and terrorist acts and all the pollution, that all stems from negative emotions that aren't under control. And if we can all just sort of focus every day on embracing love for ourselves, for our family, for our neighbors, for everyone in the world, including all the animals, if we can all do that every day, our world will be a much happier place to live in.
Well, that's the theme of my conference, and I think you're one of the most important mediums and psychics in the world today, Garnet, because you have that message. You not only just give messages from the other side, but there's a reason and purpose why you do it. I mean, you could probably still be practicing law up in Calgary now, but you were contacted by your spirit guide to give messages to humanity. And on behalf of everyone listening today, I just want to thank you so much for doing that, because I think you've made a real difference in the lives of people on this planet.
Well, thank you for saying that, Ted. You're very kind. Yeah. And yes, you're right. Albert showed up in my life. He wanted me to change course. He wanted me to take a different path away from the practicing law. Right. And about a year after I met him, actually, I just thought law was irrelevant to me, and so I retired. And I've been pursuing the other path that he's led me on with vigor. I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy writing my books. I enjoy being on radio shows and talking about his message. And I really think it's my new goal in life is to get his message out, get the message from Spirit out to as many people as I can. And it was really a transformational experience that I had, and I'm very happy that I ran into him. Of course, he had this all up his sleeve. He had designed this all beforehand, which I didn't know. But anyway, he picked perfect timing, and away we've gone.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. One of the people, of course, I support on the program is the work of the Emoto Peace Project in Dr. Emoto's office in Tokyo, Japan. And because years ago, Dr. Emoto, before he passed away in 2014, theorized, and he also wrote books about this too, that everything he said is hado, H-A-D-O. Now, hado is a Japanese word for vibration, and he thought that everything was vibration. And if you have higher vibration, you're going to feel better, live longer, and be happier. And he has these medical machines that I'm having two people from the Emoto office fly from Tokyo to Olympia, Washington via Seattle to bring and demonstrate and also give treatments with at the Galactic Wisdom Conference on June 10, 11, and 12 in Olympia, Washington. And they're based on this hado principle. And the principle is that when people are diseased or they have a physical or spiritual problem, is that their vibrations are lower or it's out of whack for their particular body. And so what they do is that that you put your hand on this electronic pad, the machine reads it, and then it'll program water as to the correct vibration to help you with any spiritual or physical condition. And the amazing thing about this machine is that it goes back into past lives as well as your current physical condition. I had a couple of treatments when I was in Tokyo last year, and the gentleman who gave me the treatment doesn't speak any English, yet he was telling me about all these things that only I would know because he had no way of knowing it. The other thing, too, is that if the operator of the machine is in a bad mood or negative or doesn't think it'll work, the machine will not work. You have to have somebody operating the machine who's positively minded and who sincerely wants to help people, then the machine will work. But it's an amazing machine, and while you're there, you'll be hearing the speakers coming from Tokyo explaining how the machine works and everything. It's the kind of device. It looks very humble. It's about the size of a small electronic typewriter, but its technology is way beyond this dimension. And my own feeling is that it's hundreds, maybe a thousand, several thousand years ahead of our current technology.
Sounds fascinating, Ted. I'd love to be able to see it when I get to the conference.
Yeah, they'll be there. They'll be giving a speech on Saturday, and then we'll be demonstrating the machines on Sunday. Now, if you are a health practitioner and you're interested in buying one of the machines, they are for sale. The machines cost $6,000, and you may think, well, that's a lot of money. But if you go to a hospital and you talk about some of the machines that they have, X-ray machines, all these diagnostic machines, they're very, very expensive, sometimes $500,000. And so $6,000 if you are a medical practitioner really is not that much, especially for a machine that's been tested for decades and has been extremely effective in the past. Dr. Emoto treated approximately 10,000 patients successfully with this machine before he passed away in 2014. So it's got a good track record. And we've got enough slots to do treatments for 10 people on Sunday. If you are interested, please send me an email. We've got 5 or 6 people already signed up, and I have a feeling by next week those other 5 slots will be gone. So if you are interested, please send me an email to outofthisworld1150@gmail.com, or feel free to give me a call here in the United States at area code 509-750-9793, or my toll-free number, good in the United States and Canada, at 1-888-879-8339. If you miss the conference or can't get in to get a treatment, you can always fly to Tokyo, but it's a long trip and the flights are expensive. But Garnet, we've got about 2.5 minutes, or about 2 minutes left, and I want to give you the rest of the time to please wrap up. Say anything you'd like to wrap up your wonderful interview today.
Well, I just want to tell people where they can access more information about my books, Ted.
Okay, please.
The best source is my website, which is garnetschulhauser.com.
Okay.
That's hard to remember, but if you Google Dancing on a Stamp or Dance of Heavenly Bliss, you will get to my website.
Okay.
And there people can you can download an excerpt from each book for free. You can watch a book video for each of my books, and you can dial into a page where I have all the radio show recordings I've ever done. And I've done, this is number 96 show, I think, in the last 3 years.
My goodness.
And all the recordings are there on my website, so you can listen to them all if you want, or pick and choose what you want.
Wonderful.
You can also dial into my social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Google Plus, for more information about what's going on in my life. And so that's really a good source of information. And my email address is there as well, Ted.
Okay.
So if any of your listeners want to contact me with a question or a comment, I'd be happy to hear from them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, when you're down in Olympia, I'd love to take you out to dinner, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. So,
I'm looking forward to it, Ted. Looking forward to meeting you in person.
Wonderful, wonderful, Garnet. Well, with that, I want to thank you so much for coming on today, Garnet. And also I wanted to tell everyone that 1 week from today, I'll be having on Dr. Raymond Moody, who's one of the world's most famous near-death researchers. He's been doing this for many decades. And I would like to finish today's interview with this song from John Lemon. And again, thank you so much, Garnet, for coming on today.